Welcome to the Hourly Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are shaping the future of work and organizational culture. I'm your host, AJ Rikiki, and in today's episode, we dive into the story of Amy Hom, a seasoned restaurant executive and current COO of Barcelona Wine Bar. I absolutely loved hearing about her journey from working at both McDonald's and Burger King to becoming one of the industry's most influential leaders. What stood out most, however, was Amy's commitment to mentorship and investing in the next generation of restaurant workers. I left the conversation feeling inspired and hope you do too. Enjoy. But Amy, thanks for being on the show. I'm your host, AJ. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the years, following you on LinkedIn. You've done incredible things in your career and now at Barcelona Wine Bar. But I'm really curious today to ask you questions about staffing and culture and you as a leader. So thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me, AJ.
Yeah, no worries. So let's get started with how you got into the industry. What was your first restaurant job and what got you into this space?
Well, I started off at McDonald's, which everyone knows in the United States, one out of eight folks have worked at McDonald's, which is pretty cool. We just had an event where Tabassum spoke as our chief development officer, and we were kind of chatting through that. But started from McDonald's, and then my full service career, I was dropped off at a mall and living with this woman, and she said, "If you're going to live with me, here's your 25 cents. You need to find a job." And so I got a job at Hula Hands and learned everything I possibly could and soaked it up, which a lot of us do in the industry. It's how we got to where we are now, and have had a great journey.
Yeah, because I know that you've been in a bunch of different jobs and you've been a part of a bunch of different groups, big and small. What are some things that you think make this industry special, and why do you keep on finding yourself coming back to it?
Oh, it's in my blood. It's in a lot of our, there's a bunch of us that stay kind of close together in the industry, and it's what we do, and we're in the people business, right? And how cool is it that you have these opportunities to influence or impact somebody else's career and watch them soar? It is tough at times, or it's not always fun and games, but my motto is those that have worked with me is easy on people, tough on standards, and
Mm,
it kind of just drives the culture, drives accountability, operations excellence. At the same time, you're going to a party every day. I get to meet different people every day, different shifts, and bring the vibe. So how can you not want to be a part of this industry? We're still the second largest in the country, other than the government. So we're kicking ass right now.
yeah, and I love it. And you speak with such passion, which I greatly admire. Was there anyone that you think that comes to mind when you talk about mentorship and bringing you into the industry and making people's lives better that did that for you? Like, was there like a person or people that were able to be along that journey?
Oh my God, AJ, there's a laundry list. And I don't say that lightly. I mean,
Right.
I started off with Debbie from McDonald's, Les Carter from Hula Hands, Chris Kennedy, who's still in the industry, helped me to learn how to serve, to Sue Collins, who's over at Fabletics now as a CFO, and Sarah Grover, who runs, it's so wild her career, but she's at SpaceX now doing marketing.
Crazy.
And Karen Stutz is, I talk to her 3 or 4 times a day. If I don't check in with her, I don't feel like I've had my meals for the day. So it's Greg Majewski, Jeff Alexander, like the list goes on and on and on. And this is a connection business. Sam Stanovich as of recently, you can just reach out and people put their walls down and help. And it's not one person that's brought me along; it's a tribe.
Right.
And I kind of consider myself still, one of their, mentees for life. And I attach myself onto people I see doing great things and learn from them. And as of recently, Barcelona Wine Bar, Adam is a great CEO, great mentor. And I think he's super approachable. I think that's important these days. And we're very vulnerable with each other. And it's just not one person, unfortunately and fortunately.
Yeah, I mean it's great to hear, and for those that are listening, don't know Barcelona Wine Bar. Tell us a little bit about it. How many locations? What type of food slash drinks do you serve? And what's the culture like? What do you pride yourself on?
We are yummy food, yummy Spanish tapas with an organic wine list, over 400 organic wines.
Mm,
And you come to have fun and for an experience. Our answer is yes. We'll do just about anything we possibly can to make sure you are taken care of and you're having that experience that when you leave, you're like, wow, I'm coming back here. We have really fun parties where sometimes you see the bartenders on the bar doing the Perone and
Love
just,
it.
it really is a positive environment that they've created. So it's great to be a part of it. Uh, we opened a second restaurant brand. So there's Corsica, and Corsica is Mediterranean, and we've got them located like a block from each other in downtown Denver
Hmm.
in Rhino. And so if anybody's around, check it out. But it's our sister concept because we don't really want to flood the market with what Barcelona is. It's a very special brand, but we
Right.
do want to be able to go. We want to go in and also bring something else to different cities that we can. So we're opening soon in Minneapolis next month, and then we're opening in Tampa, and we've got a couple other locations on the horizon here, along with Corsica openings.
Love it. And when you talk about, and it comes across in your personality as well, positive fun being very important to the brand. And how do you make sure to, establish that culture and make sure that the vibe of the restaurant maintains kind of that with, all the scale that you guys are experiencing?
We
Okay.
have a service model that a lot of folks have kind of gotten away from, but it really
Right.
works for us. We have front servers, back servers, bussers,
Mm,
along with an executive chef, some sous chefs in there. So with the GM running the restaurant, of course. So it's certain markets, of course, carry different characteristics. So you're staffing for different personalities, but overall, we have a really good performance record when it comes to staffing the restaurants. Now, mind you, this is coming out of a time, I'm not going to say the word because everyone keeps talking about it, but we're kind of all over it. We're
yeah.
done talking about it. We discussed in the industry. It happened to us, and it can't be the excuse anymore. But what is happening are different things in how we're combating. Like if you look at California, we just lost 48 units of Rubios, and all those employees that entrusted us with their livelihood. You're seeing that happen in California, Washington, some of these other states where the labor laws have just really gotten a little bit tougher for people to run a business. And that is harmful for those that folks like me that came up through the industry. People trust that they can go from a dishwasher to a C-suite or into the marketing department if they'd like. But where some of these folks are struggling, they're shutting their doors. So we're all trying to gather together to help. We're lobbying, we're getting involved. The National Restaurant Association's done a great job with, folks like down in Texas with Emily Williams Knight and Joe. I mean, there's just really good people trying to do really good work right now.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I mean, when I think about it, it's 60 people inside of one restaurant. That's very difficult to manage, right? That's twice the size of a quick service restaurant. And although you're in bigger cities, it's really hard to maintain that sort of 100% staffing level, especially with
Mm-hmm.
the industry averages for turnover, which I'm sure you're
Really
doing better, but over 150%.
No, and the
So,
GM turnover is the highest it's been in 15 years. So,
yeah,
um, and they're not leaving. They're not leaving to go to another restaurant group. They're leaving the industry and they're going into these warehouses.
right.
For Amazon. And the top three reasons after learning this from Josh Halpern with Big Chicken was they're leaving because of pay rate, because of benefits, and because of the issue of them being abused, whether it's by their management team, their leader, and or a guest, and they don't
Right.
have to deal with that. And so we're trying to figure that out and make sure the leadership's in place so that doesn't happen in any segment, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and that's super interesting. And I've seen a lot of studies because, of course, in my day job at Sprockets, we study retention all day, every day, and we're talking to operators and hourly workers. And what's really interesting is you are right. Is turnover is there's excusable turnover, inexcusable turnover, and there's a lot of different factors of why it occurs. And one that was really interesting that we recently started to really dig in on is proximity to the location is almost number one or number two reasons why somebody leaves or stays or is happy in their job, because the extremes of it is if somebody could walk to work every day, that's a way better experience than taking an hour bus ride and having to make 2 to 3 stops. And so
Sure.
one of the things that is challenging for this industry is it's not only, difficult to find people that are a good match, can do the work and all those different things. But when you start talking about proximity to affordable housing, especially when there's restaurants in desirable areas, that gap's pretty big. And now, to your point, where other industries are opening up where people can work remotely from home and be on a computer all day rather than somebody throwing the ice cream back into the drive-through window, which, as you know, being in the space happens, and customers that are spending $5 for a value pack are not always the nicest to the people that are delivering it, right? And and I know, just
And
being in
you,
the industry. You too?
I do have to say, no, that I do have to say this though, because I was telling my staff this once. I said, "Don't you think 80 to 90% of all people are good?" And they were like,
Yes.
Amy, you're a little positive of that. And I go, no. You get one or two little cray cray, but
Right.
overall, people come and people come into restaurants right now to get connected to another human. And so whether
Mm,
you go, I go eat all the time by myself. I'm on the road by myself all the time. I don't care. I'll go sit at a bar and talk to the bartender all night long. I do not mind. There's people
yep.
that don't do that, but when I do go, it is to get an external connection, not to go sit back at my hotel. But I do think that yes, there's some abuse in the industry. But honestly, AJ, that could be happening anywhere. And the other
Right.
thing that's interesting right now is the generation that just graduated college, they don't want remote jobs. If you
Mm,
talk to them, they want jobs where they can go into the office a few days a week because their social circles were built around that. If you think back when you and I started, which you were like started yesterday, but when you think about that, you build connections through going into offices or through work. And now people admit that there's a gap there. I don't know if you're hearing that, but I am definitely hearing that.
yeah. Yeah. I think people definitely want to come back to work. People crave that social element. And the ultimate crown of or thing that you can achieve, I feel like, in the space right now as an hourly worker is working with your friends, right? And I always talk
Mhm.
about this in the podcast and in the book that we just released. But we're facing a new generation that would rather work with people they enjoy and have fun than make a ton of money, right? And I'm sure, like, listen, like, people want to make
Really?
money, make a ton. They want to make a lot of money, right? But we are having people that, when they have to pick between $10 and $11, they will pick 10 if it's not as stressful as the 11. And like, when I tell that to my father, who's in the baby boomer generation, he looks at me like I'm absolutely insane, because his work culture was work as hard as you can for as much money as you can, be as miserable as that job will make you. But if you do it, you'll get a white picket fence, live the American dream, and be able to provide an opportunity for your kids to go to art school. Right. When now I feel like what I'm hearing from the field, but curious to hear your thoughts, is people don't, Gen Z, younger millennials, want to feel and have fun. They want to be in those social environments. And if they don't make all the money in the world, it's like, maybe I'll go drive Uber for a few hours. Maybe I'll do this gig thing, or maybe this job I have now isn't the career. Like, maybe I'm just kind of floating by and doing what I want to, be free spirited. What's your thoughts there?
Well, what do you like to do? You're kind of in that generation. Do you like to work from you kind of have your own job, but
Yeah.
if you had to pick, would you take a job where you go to a party every day in a restaurant? I always feel like it's a party. Would you rather work from home every day? Or is it this whole hybrid that everybody's talking about?
I've never been asked questions on the podcast. So, but being put on spot like this, I feel like I'm an old soul. Like, as we were talking about before we pressed record, I had kids that when I was so young. And I feel like I'm more of the older generation where working's important and having fun is like when I'm home at like
Mm.
with family. Although at Sprockets, we do try to create a fun, cool environment. So, but I would say that my peers, like people that I went to school, albeit very short with, um, they're still in that phase where they want to have fun. They want to go in and have the time of their life, and post the Instagram pictures about what they're doing on the weekends and all those different things. So, I mean, think like anything, it's a spectrum, and people fit on different ends of that. But I think for restaurant workers, like in at Barcelona, it feels like you're building an awesome environment where people can come and have that fun. and be social and interact with guests, which certainly speaks the love language to many people that are in the workforce. And I'm sure you're seeing a reduced turnover and a lot of recruitment because of that. Do you think that's kind of leading to the growth? Do you think that's an important piece of it?
Oh, absolutely. You have to have the people to fill the restaurant, to do the job, and to execute the operation. I do think there's a different level, and I'll give credit a little bit to Starbucks. It started it of authenticity, where people can show up as their authentic selves, whether they have tattoos or nose rings. And there's different leaders still in the industry that kind of fight that a little bit.
Yeah.
But our staff, when they know that they can show up, I've got this. We've got this great GM in South End, Brandon, and he is authentically himself every day, and he welcomes any walk of life, and that's the Barcelona way. We are open to anyone and everyone that wants to come in our door, whether to dine or to work. And I think that there's still some that are in the old school ways, whereas folks are much more comfortable these days being themselves, and I think that that's important, that the work allows them to do that, or the workspace does.
Yeah, and that's a common thread I'm seeing, um, amongst people that we bring on the podcast. Like, if you haven't looked at the podcast yet, I would recommend looking at the episode we did with Heather Morgan. She heads up the people practices at Alamo Draft House, and she talks a lot about that. Is kind of bringing in people that can be their true selves, and it allows them and disarms them to be their best version at work. And for all the reasons, when people are very comfortable at their job, they bring their friends to come work with them. And good people typically surround themselves with other good people. And then almost overnight, one turns to two good employee, turns to four, that turns to eight, that turns to 16. And then all of a sudden you're fully staffed.
Because it's
Right.
the best place to be. It's the best
Right.
place to be, and word gets out.
Right. And so when what advice would you have to restaurant operators that might feel like they don't have a great culture, want to have more fun with the hourly workforce, want to build kind of more retention? What are some actionable things that they could do in order to achieve that sort of level?
It's not a average answer, and
Yep.
it's probably not going to be well thought of, but I suggest that they go hang out where there is good culture for a day. Go find a
Mm.
mentor or someone that you know in the industry, and go into their business. And everyone, like I said, everyone in this business is all holding hands, trying to figure it out together. And I will go sometimes and hang out with some of these folks in their restaurants. We were just touring a restaurant facility last week in Chicago to check it out, and it's this other brand's business, but you learn so much. And so if you pick up on something, you go out to dinner and you're like, this is a great environment. How do I build this? Go hang out and ping that leader and go spend the day with them. It's I do it. I think some other folks do it, but I also think some people back off and think they just need to figure it out in their own four walls. But you only know your four walls, and unless you get out of them, or your company, that's all you know. It's good to expand your horizon a little bit, and get some different perspective.
Yeah. And I keep on hearing that come from you, right? Mentorship, 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 classifying certain people as your mentors. Curious, do you have any mentees, people that have reached out to you that you're able to check in with? And, what's been something that you've learned in that process?
Yes, a lot of young women,
Mm.
some men, but definitely a lot of young women from different brands. I hold space on the calendar for that, for myself to get mentored, and for them to talk to myself. But one thing I still hear, and I think it took a little bit of a dip the backwards way, and is now coming to light even more, is the young leaders' confidence level, the emerging leaders' confidence level. It was there before, and I call it the gremlins, the inner critic. How do you manage them? You'll say something wrong, or you think you'll say something wrong, or you'll do something, and then that travels with you. And it takes all your productivity out of what you could be doing to actually make yourself or the business better. Because as weird as this sounds, people have moved on. They've given you the feedback. You're moved on. You may have said something. Nobody really honestly dwells on it. If you constantly ask for feedback, you'll get it. But if you do get the feedback, don't manage your inner critic. Try to learn forward. Put a calendar date and say, okay, I'm going to check back in with this mentor and see if I've gotten better. Hey, ask them to watch you and to lean in and continue that cycle. And people have really grown from that. There's a book on Amazon called Taming Your Gremlins. I send it out to a lot of young folks.
Hmm.
It's just a book about how to manage your inner critic. And it took me a long time to do it. And I would say the second thing is leaning into probing questions. It's very hard to do as a leader, but a lot of times, like AJ, you're in a leadership role, someone will ask you a question, you get the answer, but actually responding with probing questions and getting them to understand they know the answer. Most of the leaders, young leaders and emerging leaders know the answer, but pinging them and getting them where you want them to be and to realize it themselves is much different than just telling them where they should go or what the answer is. So probably those two buckets, the managing the inner critic and them understanding they do have the confidence to do the job, and no one's perfect. And the second bucket is, just the managing your your time and how you're going to spend it with your mentors and mentees. But it's a progress. Everybody's growing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear that. And that's something that I deal with a lot too, is because I feel like I have a lot of mentors and I don't think I have nearly as many mentees as mentors. The ratio is probably 1,000 to 1. Right.
I
And
think you
that
have
is,
some, you may not realize it.
yeah, maybe as we get older, I think it naturally happens. But what would you say is an appropriate next step after somebody's had a conversation with a potential mentor? Because I think that's always, I don't want to say the awkward part, but you convince somebody to bring you out to coffee, you get feedback from your boss. What's an appropriate next couple steps that somebody can take in order to establish kind of that relationship rather than a one off conversation that didn't lead into anything? And I think we've all been subject to that, where I finally get somebody, I have an awesome conversation, and then I do a handwritten note, but I find it might be the last time I ever talk to that person. Is it a month, 3 months, 6 months? Like, how do you kind of navigate all of that?
That's that depends on the relationship and the mentor relationship you have, because not all of mine are the same, right? So
Right.
where I check in with Karen every day, it's, hey, this is what's going on today. Any thoughts on how I manage this today versus the next day? There's ones where I check in with Sarah or Sue and I'll see them once a quarter. And
Mm,
hey, this is what's going on. What are your thoughts? If I ever need to pick up the phone, they're there. But there's different relationships where Adam will give me feedback, on a weekly basis.
right.
Hallberg with Barcelona. So now, mind you, I'm big on development plans. I have, for some reason, the folks at Barcelona call it the one pager now. It's adopted its own life. But they call it the one pager. And that is to be done with anybody that directly reports into you.
Right.
And it's not about Barcelona. It's about what do they want to learn? Is there organizational skills, communication skills, chef skills? Like, what is it that they want to learn to actually make them a better leader, which in return makes Barcelona a better company because we have stronger leadership. And those are to be done every 30 days. And that is just an ongoing conversation with that direct leader. That's a different kind of mentorship because that's their supervisor. And they need
Right.
to, I want them to lean into what does this person need to get to the next level and for part of succession planning and staffing, so all in what you're doing.
Yeah. And so when you think about career mapping and these different relationships, and it seems to be very structured, right? And I love that because I'm also like, that definitely speaks my love language. How do you bring that sort of culture, mentality, thought process down to the hourly level? Are you encouraging GMs to have these similar conversations with people that are on the front lines? How do you think about all of that?
I think those are the emerging leader conversations. So you have a captain or key hourly or supervisor, they should all have them in place. The hourly positions for me are round tables, and when you're in the restaurant, sitting down
Mhm.
with them one to one. So
Yep.
round tables are important. We also conduct them with our GMs in smaller groups. What's working, what's not right, start, stop, continue, and then it's really important that we follow up on that feedback that they give us. So it's at the end of the day, the overarching theme is being approachable as a leader and constant communication and allowing them to be vulnerable with you if they're having a bad day. We do these heart checks. Brene Brown does them with her husband, which made me laugh because I saw that the other day. And my husband's like, "Where's your number?" And I was like, "Okay, I do this at work. This is super weird." But
Yep.
if you're doing a heart check every day, 1 to 5, and one's you're having the worst day ever, five's you're feeling great. I know where their headspace is at. So today was kind of funny because my ops person, a VP of ops, text and said, "Hey, what's your heart check today, Aim?" And I started laughing and I said 5. So it's kind of making its round circle,
Okay.
and but that just kind of keeps us in check of what's going on, because sometimes we're human. People are having bad days, and we need to respect that and follow up and dig in sometimes when you hear that. But I'm one of those people. I have folks on my team that say, "Amy, I'm never a 5." Well, I'm always a 5 because my arms and legs work, but I'm different. So, but
Yeah.
you kind of figure out how people work.
Yeah, totally get it. And when you say roundtables, great discussion that a lot of people on the podcast and in our conversations always talk about is open roundtable, buy everybody pizza, start a conversation. But there is some art and science to an effective roundtable. As you've done it throughout your
Sure.
career, like what are some things that you found to make it an even better conversation than just getting a memo from corporate saying we're coming in, we're doing a roundtable? You set rules. Do you buy the pizza? Do you open up with anything? Like, how did you facilitate as good of a conversation as possible there?
First of all, you have to know the people around the table. You can't just go in and say, or I never, when people are like, "Oh, you're corporate," I'm like, "I'm not corporate. I'm Amy, and I'm just here
Right.
to hang out."
Yeah.
And you have to make yourself approachable. Otherwise, they don't work. It's kind of the 5 dysfunctions of a team model. People hear me
Mm,
talk about that a lot. If you don't have
yep.
the trust, you can't get the healthy conflict conversations going.
Yep.
And so it's getting to know them first. "Hey, AJ, how are the kids? Um, how's Charlotte? Like whatever, Charleston, whatever it is, like
Right.
how's life going?" And making that personal connection, and then you can sit down. And sometimes it's a pre-planned, but right off the bat, you can't do that. You have to build the relationships first. And then now if I say, "Hey, I'm coming in, to the Charlotte restaurant. I'll be there on the 8th. Does anybody want to sit down and grab some coffee?
Right.
First 6 that sign up, let's chat." And then people sit down because now they know who you are. But it takes a little bit of time. It's also needs to be anonymous. So the feedback is not coming from a specific person, but we go back to the exec team to help fix it. And so we'll sit around, and no one ever asks who said it. It's an issue. This is being brought up. What are we going to do to fix it? Some things you can fix in the restaurant, some things you can help with the GM, and some things are like, their payroll system's not working. They keep getting too many emails, as one of them told me the other day. So now I need to go back and help that, because
Yep.
those are the little things that can make their days better. And that our job is to simplify their roles.
Yeah. No, I love that. And providing an outlet for people to talk to just so important. And there's a lot of communication tools that do that. There's you stopping in the restaurants to be able to have the conversation. So love that for you and love that for Barcelona. But we are coming up on time. And if you've watched this podcast before, you know that the last question is always the same, regardless of who's on the show. It's, what was your very first hourly job? And 1A or 1B is, were you let go or did you quit said job? And just note that we've had amazing, inspiring stories about people who started a job and now they're the CEO of that company. But we've also had some very funny stories, very light stories where people were fired within 30 minutes of starting because they did something really boneheaded. So curious, especially with your personality, of what we hear from you.
I'm so bummed because mine's so boring. I worked at McDonald's in the daytime in a hospital in St. Louis, and then the nighttime was Burger King drive-through. And I ended up having to move out of where I was living, so I went to the other side of the city of St. Louis and had to quit. But one thing at McDonald's was I became like a crew leader really quick, but I couldn't
Yep.
understand why these doctors in the hospital would come down and order these big old Big Mac meals. And I'm like, so weird. You're
Yeah.
operating and doing heart surgery, but you're down here killing your arteries. But anyway, it was a great journey, and I don't have anything juicy on that. It just kind of is what it is. I'm
I was
sorry.
hoping for some great, magnificent, throw your apron up and walk out the location. You bring all your friends with you,
I don't think
something
I've done that yet.
magnificent like
I don't
that.
think I've done that. I did get fired from a Blockbuster video once, but that was it. I think was my
That's it.
my.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll check in a few years and see if that's changed. How about
Yeah,
that?
I
Yeah.
hope not. If anyone's listening, don't fire me. Just so you know,
Yeah.
I don't have a cool story for that.
Too funny. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how to best do that? Is it LinkedIn? You mentioned that you do have time on your calendar for people that want to get mentorship. Like, walk us through that for anybody that's listening and might be curious of getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say just go to the LinkedIn page, honestly. My personal email's on there as well. And reach out. I'm pretty good at responding unless I'm out of town or I'm in a restaurant, but, happy to help. We also I'll do a quick plug. We have LEAD and Gleam. I'm on the Gleam board, and we run LEAD, and LEAD is a program for emerging leaders in the industry. And our next one is in Houston on September 26th, and that is for emerging leaders to get access to C-suite. And we've got some really cool speakers at that event. So we're hoping to see everybody down there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast again. I know the people that are listening have a lot to learn from. We're looking forward to seeing what you do next in the industry at Barcelona and beyond. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks for having me.
All right. Awesome.